In my closing, I'd urge all participants to listen to the exclusive insights and lessons learned from the very impressively large number of experts on the various panels. These are experts, these are people who've overcome challenges to find success in both markets and to continue to grow Australia-India collaboration in technology-enabled sectors, all of those sectors that Deepak Padaki articulated. Take the opportunity to organise B2B meetings to better understand Australia's business environment, our innovation credentials and our track record as a reliable economic partner. And take the opportunity to explore the mechanisms that can support two-way technology exchange, collaboration and investment. This is crucial for forging new bonds in cyberspace and beyond. I'm sure this is going to be a very, very productive and successful 3 days of the IACC Innovation Virtual Trade Mission on Tech and Innovation. I wish all the participants well, and I look forward to seeing tangible outcomes from this important mission. All the very best to all participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy High Commissioner Mr. Hutchison, for your comments. I will now request His Excellency Mr. Ekitesh Sharma to please give us his opening remarks. We've already introduced you, High Commissioner, so over to you.
Thank you very much, and once again I'll say good afternoon and absolute pleasure, delight to be here. Thank you, Petula, for that setting the tone, and it's a wonderful initiative to bring us all together in this virtual mode. Mr. Deepak Padaki, also your opening remarks, I acknowledge they were very, very useful in highlighting the importance of India and Australia working together at this moment. It's absolutely in sync with the reality and what is on the ground at this moment, even though we are not able to stretch out and shake hands. But this is how the sentiments are in Australia. As an Indian High Commissioner, I can reiterate, testify to that. I'm happy that this 21st Trade Mission is being facilitated virtually. And when the pandemic is there, we have to find ways to beat the pandemic in any form that is possible. And the pandemic we have already lived with it for a year. Now it's time to move on with life and do the normal things. Pandemic will go, and then we will be left with the economic and other kind of objectives. So it's absolutely satisfying that India and Australia have used every single method to continue the focus on this relationship. There is a context in India when we talk about technology that India has been able to, in many ways, leapfrog or bypass certain intermediate stages, thanks to various innovations. And if you look at the way the Aadhaar card system, the unique identity card system was introduced, and it empowered people, and you did not even have to be literate in many cases. It's an amazing innovation, and many developing countries are in awe of this technological feat, which allows people to transact, to do banking functions. And if you link it up with the banking innovation itself, like you talk of the Jam Trinity, which I shan't elaborate, but the Jan Dhan bank account, etc., etc., and mobile phones also. We struggled at one time to have a landline, and today you look at India is really the center in many ways for mobile phones, whether it's production or whether it's usage or whether it's innovation based on mobile phones. So this is really a kind of technology-based platform which enables our two countries. Australia itself is a very, very dynamic country and with great technological and innovative skills. So let us find ways of exploiting this technological solutions that are before us. Our digital readiness has in fact played a crucial role during the pandemic situation in identifying hotspots, reaching out to people who are in need, and in a most efficient manner to deal with situations where we are isolated or cut off physically from each other. Technology has also given us the confidence to embark on this mass vaccination effort. India is has embarked on one of the largest vaccination exercises in the world. So there is light at the end of the tunnel as far as the pandemic is concerned. So you are doing the right thing, which is to think of business. Don't wait till everything is back and track as before. Probably it will never be the same. We would have learned new ways of working together. Education and research is another dimension that, apart from fintech and technology-based innovations, that education is something which brings us together. Indian students before the pandemic were coming in droves to Australia, and some of the world's best institutions are in Australia. And increasingly, Indian students who traditionally would tend to go to United States and Europe, UK, they also started discovering that probably the most competitive institutions may be in Australia. So you'll find as the next lot comes in through other kinds of peer references, you'll find more and more numbers, and there were already about 100,000. But we are looking also in India with the national education policy, the new national education policy also, which it will always be a country like India is one of scale, and sending out 100,000 students is nothing actually. I mean, there's a whole lot of work to be done in India. So you have some good institutions, but a lot of institutions which need serious upgradation, and bring in the best faculty, teaching methodology, certification techniques, and Australia is very, very good at that. So I think this kind of framework document, the framework and the new, the desire to learn from the best, I think that is there in India. There's no shame in learning from others, and we are one of those countries which is very open to new knowledge and new techniques. And so we look forward to a partnership where the new education policy is at the center. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Morrison, they met at the virtual summit that again is a technology-based engagement where both sides committed to elevate our bilateral strategic partnership to that of comprehensive strategic partnership. It's not just words. Comprehensive means in any area really. There's no area which is taboo. And strategic means it's not tactical. It's for the long haul. We are here to stay, whether it's pandemic or anything else, or the ups and downs of cricket, which leads to all kinds of emotions. But we are here to hold hands and to work together and to do all kinds of joint activity, because there is mutual benefit, and there are also benefits for entire humanity, in fact, in many sectors. I'm very happy to recognize that in the COVID context also, the Australia-India Strategic Research Fund has also looked at special projects since December 2020. And the cyber side also, cyber and cyber-enabled critical technology cooperation is another sector which today's world, if everything is digital, then everything must be vulnerable in some way. So with some of the best minds in Australia and India, I think there is merit that our societies, which are rule-based democracies, transparent, at the same time we value privacy, and data protection is very central to our fintech technologies. So I think this is another area where we really have a huge potential to come together. I've also already seen in my stint here that Indian public sector banks have also found ways of accessing Australian innovation in some way or the other during this period. That Australia, especially because it's a large country with spread apart, they are very natural at resorting and depending on technology to service the widespread kind of the distances, the people who are in remote locations. And so we will greatly benefit from working with Australia. I'm happy to say that hackathons are also quite popular, and recently the first India-Australia Circular Economy Hackathon was successfully held this month. So this is so really promise of more to come. Supply chains is another area which you could take a look at. And in last September there was a meeting between India, Australia, and Japan at the ministerial level, where it was agreed to work towards a supply chain resilient initiative. This is the need of the hour. This is the need of today for a country like ours, and there is also a need in the global on a global scale that countries should work together to ensure that disruptions don't follow certain kinds of cyclical incidents or developments. So we really hoped that these kind of possibilities and opportunities will be converted into real achievements. I take this opportunity to congratulate Indo-Australian Chamber of Commerce for launch of Science and Innovation Industry Sector Leadership Forum. This will be a wonderful opportunity for bringing about partnerships at all levels, industry, academia, and government. And certainly there's a shared interest in technology and innovation. I would, at the end, what I should have done at the beginning, but for the disruption, thank all the participants and all the dignitaries also who have found time in some way or the other to be associated. Mr. Bryce Hutchison also, please convey my regards to my counterpart, but also deeply appreciate your own presence and your remarks. And each one of you, let me wish you very fruitful discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, High Commissioner, for those inspiring and insightful comments and your opening remarks. We now move on to the much-awaited inauguration of our Virtual Tech and Innovation Trade Mission to Australia. We are absolutely delighted to have the Honourable Dan Tehan, MP, Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, Government of Australia, inaugurate this initiative. We'll now hear from the Honourable Minister.
A very warm welcome to delegates across India and Australia. I'm pleased to be joining you virtually today to inaugurate this Tech and Innovation Trade Mission to Australia, organised and hosted by the Indo-Australian Chamber of Commerce. Thanks also to my fellow panellists and high-profile delegates across all sessions, especially other senior officials, industry leaders and tech experts for taking the time to participate. For more than a year, the COVID-19 pandemic has presented unprecedented challenges to the global economy. But in the midst of this, COVID-19 has also highlighted the resilience of our businesses, institutions and government agencies. Here in Australia, we saw a rapid uptake of technology as a direct response to COVID. We continue to make world-leading advances in cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, quantum computing and 5G, as well as the policy frameworks governing these. But innovation is a team sport, and we are keen to pursue two-way technology exchanges, collaboration and investment with reliable, like-minded countries. That's why Prime Ministers Modi and Morrison elevated the bilateral relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership and put in place practical agreements on cybersecurity, emerging technology and critical minerals. The new Australia-India framework on cyber and cyber-enabled critical technology cooperation will support businesses to enhance digital trade, shape the norms and rules that govern global technology, and address cybersecurity challenges in the Indo-Pacific region. This will support the strong existing business and research links between us. Australian firms like ANZ, Telstra and Atlassian are growing their footprint in India, while Indian tech heavyweights such as TCS, Infosys and Wipro are enhancing their investment and presence in Australia. This is driving welcome productivity gains at home. Finding new ways to work together will be crucial to creating jobs, driving growth and accelerating our respective economic recoveries. 1 in 50 Australians are of Indian origin, and we strongly welcome the contribution of the Indian community. We've established the Global Business and Talent Attraction Task Force, offering a suite of new services to eligible high-yield businesses and exceptionally talented individuals to relocate to Australia, along with their ideas, networks and capital. In a highly competitive international market, we look forward to continuing to work with India through the exchange of talent, ideas and opportunities. Thank you.
I'd really like to thank the Minister for those excellent remarks and for inaugurating our Tech and Innovation virtual trade mission to Australia. And also thank you to the Australian Consulate in Chennai for their support. We're very proud to have the New South Wales Government as a platinum partner for our event. In February 2020, Minister Stuart Ayres visited India, and many of us had the opportunity to meet with him. We'll now hear from the Honourable Stuart Ayres, MP, New South Wales Minister for Jobs, Investment, Tourism and Western Sydney.
Hi, I'm Stuart Ayres, the New South Wales Minister for Jobs, Investment, Tourism and Western Sydney, and I'd like to welcome you to the Indo-Australian Chamber of Commerce virtual trade mission. There's no doubt that as we move our way into 2021 and push 2020 behind us, there's a renewed sense of optimism here in Australia, and no doubt the same is in India. We're presented with a wonderful opportunity as the vaccine is rolled out around the world to really lift the connection between two countries that have such a long and important history with each other. And here in New South Wales, our government is making sure that our state is set up for COVID recovery, and by doing that, it's really opening the doors for investment in our state. So there's a really clear message as you start your week-long virtual conference that it's now time to be thinking about your future investments. Here in New South Wales, government policy settings are about opening the doors to investments in new technology and innovation. There's an incredibly strong relationship between the New South Wales Government and our universities, leading to a renewed sense around investment in research and development. In the heart of Sydney CBD, our new Tech Central precinct is going to become the hub for new investments in tech and innovation, with Australia's global tech business Atlassian already announcing it as its headquarters. Further west in Sydney, we're seeing the Aerotropolis, the area around the new Western Sydney Airport, an opportunity to take on greenfield developments along with significant investment in new roads, new rail and new infrastructure. There's no doubt there's lots of energy here in New South Wales, and it's the perfect time for Indian companies to be thinking about investing here in Australia. Our two countries have so much shared history. We share the same national day. We share our love of cricket. We share our passion for democracy, and we also share a passion for growing businesses, creating new opportunities for future generations of Indians and Australians to prosper in our respective countries. I hope you have a profitable and enjoyable 2 weeks or week-long period in your conference, and I would love to see you in India when we can all travel again.
We're very pleased with our collaboration with the New South Wales Government in India, and we'd like to thank the Minister for his excellent address. As part of the Chamber's strategic initiatives to position the Chamber to profitable growth and expansion and to offer more value to members, we are launching 15 industry sector leadership forums in priority sectors based on the IES, the AES, and our Chamber membership. We launched the Mining Equipment Technology and Services one last month, and today we are launching the Science and Innovation Industry Sector Leadership Forum. We have our 2 co-chairs. The first co-chair is the Vice President, Deepak Padaki, who's also the Vice President for Infosys, and we're so pleased that Deepak's agreed to take on this role as well. We also have Suresh Raman, who is Vice President and Regional Head for Tata Consultancy Services, TCS Chennai, who manages the largest delivery center of TCS with over 70,000 associates. With that, you'd definitely look to expect more and a lot more such initiatives from this Industry Sector Leadership Forum. We'll now move on to the vote of thanks. I think we're running a little behind schedule as well, so we'll move on to the vote of thanks. And for that, I would like to invite our chairperson for the Bangalore chapter, Mr. John Kenny, who's a dynamic and supportive leader for the chapter. He's director at Gas Services India, the innovation and technology hub of the Kmart Group, one of Australia's largest and most successful retail groups. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Petula. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I'd like to take the opportunity to take a few more minutes and give thanks to a number of key individuals, participants and partners. First of all, I'd really like to thank the Honourable Dan Tehan, the MP, the Minister for Trade and Tourism and Investment for the Government of Australia, for his keynote address. Very much appreciated. The Honourable Stuart Ayres, MP, New South Wales, Minister for Jobs, Investment, Tourism and Western Sydney, for his message. And His Excellency Mr. Ektash Sharma, the Indian High Commissioner to Australia as well. And Mr. Bryce Hutchinson, Australian Deputy High Commissioner to India, for his opening remarks, and to everybody else's opening remarks as well. We'd also like to thank His Excellency the Honourable Barry O'Farrell. I know he couldn't make it today, Australian High Commissioner to India, for his guidance and support. We receive an awful lot of that from the Australian Government and India as well. The Australian Consulate General in Chennai, Mumbai and Kolkata. Collaboration with Austrade. Thank you to His Excellency Mr. Ektash Sharma again for their support that we get through the Indian High Commission in Australia and the consulates in Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. And let's not forget also the members of the media. None of this would have been possible without the support of our chamber members, our partners, the working groups, and of course our secretariat team led by Petula. And the Executive Council and Chapter Committees. I'd like to thank Sanjeev Bajaj, President of the Indian Chamber of Commerce and CEO of ANZ India. I know he's unwell at the moment. Deepak Badaki, Vice President and EVP and Chief Risk Officer for Infosys, along with Petula, who is our Director of the Chamber as well, and for her leadership and our team as well. Just a few more moments just to kind of thank our Platinum members, TCS, Tata Consultant Services, Telstra, and the Government of New South Wales. Our Gold partners, Tractors and Farm Equipment Limited and NetApp. And our Silver partners, the State Government of Victoria, Guidance Tamil Nadu, Invest Karnataka, Industries and Commerce Department and Government of Karnataka, InQ, Innovation and Global, and One Lens. And of course, we've got knowledge partners as well with KPMG, especially Bhavik Damodar and Saurabh Ranadiv and Sunya Bhatia. I hope I said them well. We've also got a number of supporting partners there as well, which is the Australian Government of India, High Commissions in India, Canberra, Australia Business Council, Export Council of Australia, FinTech Australia, the Confederation of Indian Industry, the TIE of Hyderabad, NASCOM, Tourism Australia and AirMeet, the platform partner. I think this is a really good platform as well, so thank you very much for that. And of course, everybody that's on our working group, there's so many people that's on there as well that I've already previously mentioned. And of course, I've already mentioned Petula, but one big thank you to Petula and her team with Dithya, Shenjini, and Minu and Manisha. Thank you all once again for enabling this to happen along with everyone else. So that is our thanks to you. What I'd like to do now, I know that we've ran over, but we do have our next session, which is New Bridges. It's a dialogue between government, industry, academia on fostering innovation through collaboration. It supposedly starts at 10:30. I'm assuming it's either started or it's a way to start. So please take the opportunity to move on to that. And thanks once again to everyone.
Thank you very much, John, for the excellent word of thanks, and thanks to everyone for joining us here. We'll now move on to the next session, and we have about 15 other sessions to go, so please do stay with us throughout the entire program. Thank you.
Feel the warmth pulling your knee. Cleanse your soul. Feel it in your veins. Breathe it in, your lungs will stay. It's like love for the first time. It'll all make sense. You know it. It's like love. Cleanse your soul. Feel it in your veins. Breathe it in, your lungs will stay.
Hello and good morning to those joining us from India, and good evening to those joining us from Australia. I'm Petula Thomas, Director of the Indo-Australian Chamber of Commerce, and on behalf of the President, Mr. Sanjeev Bajaj, I'd like to welcome all of you to this session. The session today is a dialogue between government, industry, and academia on fostering innovation through collaboration. The Chamber is very keen to play the role of a conduit to help implement both the recommendations of the India Economic Strategy and the Australia Economic Strategy, and to work with all our stakeholders across business, government, and academia for us to play that role of a facilitator. To kick off this session, and I'd like to first introduce the moderator, that's Mr. Deepak Padaki, who's the President of IACC and the EVP and Chief Risk Officer for Infosys. So Deepak is the Executive Vice President, Group Head of Strategy, and as I mentioned, the Chief Risk Officer. His responsibilities include longer-term strategic planning for the organization and the management of cross-functional strategic initiatives. Deepak's played a very important role in us planning this initiative, and we're really looking forward to this roundtable discussion. Over to you, Deepak.
Thank you, Petula, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We just had a lovely opening for the trade mission with a lot of key messages coming in from our honorable government ministers and ambassadors. So to set the context for this session, really it's about how do we bridge the gap. We're at a very unique time in the partnership between India and Australia. The technology and innovation piece is really a growing part of the trade between the two countries and a very big opportunity for collaboration. For example, the recent cybersecurity partnership that was announced is bang in the middle of what we're trying to achieve in terms of participation from both countries for overall relationships. I think also that this partnership between the two countries, and especially businesses and academia and government, is going to play a very critical role for the world as well, because while it's a business on one side, it also has key ramifications on economic policies and on socio-political terms. So I'm very pleased that we have a very eminent panel today consisting of government, of business, and academia to maybe give a quick snapshot of what lies ahead. To start with, it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Sarah Kirlo, the Australian Consul General for South India, the Australian Consulate General in Chennai. She's a career officer with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and she previously served overseas in Beijing, in New Delhi, and Cairo, and in Canberra as well, working on a bunch of Indo-Pacific focused foreign and economic policy roles. So it's really my pleasure to invite Ms. Kirlo to give us her remarks, and then we'll take it from there. Ms. Kirlo, over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and
We're
clear.
having a few IT difficulties at our end. So I'm sure Deepak gave me a lovely introduction, but unfortunately I couldn't hear it. So please forgive me if I say anything that's duplicative. I'd like to acknowledge all of my fellow panelists and indeed everyone who's taking the time to participate in this virtual trade mission. COVID has brought us new ways of doing things, and this is a really great initiative, and I thank the IACC for the effort they've put into bringing it together. This session is to talk about how governments can assist industry to collaborate and innovate. So, there are some things that governments can do. We can create an education ecosystem that brings people to the level of training they need to participate. We can help businesses to connect with others that will assist them on their journey. We can create a business climate that's facilitative, and sometimes we can drive the uptake of new technologies through our policies. But really, it's over to you to take those green shoots and grow from them active businesses, active collaborations. So what I want to talk to you today about is what Australia brings to the innovation table, and then outline a little bit about two specific programs, which some of you will have heard a little about in the inaugural session, but the Cyber and Critical Technology Partnership between our governments and our Strategic Research Fund. So starting with what Australia brings to the innovation table. Australia is a $2 trillion economy. With just 0.3% of the world's population, we contribute 1.6% of its GDP. To give you a comparison statistic, India contributes 3.4% of the world's GDP. And while many of you may think of our economy as largely based on the export of primary industries, in fact, 80% of our economy is services-based. We have 7 universities in the global top 100, including Monash University, and we look forward to hearing more from Dr. Wilson later today. And around 44% of our workforce has a tertiary qualification. We're also an attractive destination for skilled migration with one of the highest living standards in the world. And hopefully you were a bit inspired by that video that was played at the beginning to think about a trip to Australia when that's possible again. Now, our businesses are deeply connected to the dynamic Indo-Pacific region, with a significant proportion of our trade covered by our 15 high-quality free trade agreements. We've also been a world leader in developing policies around emerging issues, such as 5G. But what you want from us here, and I'm interested to hear in the Q&A sessions, I won't take too much time, is how can governments help to foster innovation and collaboration? You heard a little about the comprehensive strategic partnership agreed by our Prime Ministers in June, which, as His Excellency Mr. Gitesh Sharma talked about, is, as it seems, comprehensive. We want Australia and India collaborating in every field, and our governments are prepared to invest to make sure that happens. So one of the things we've agreed is the framework arrangement on cyber and cyber-enabled critical technologies. Under that sits the Australia-India Cyber and Critical Technology Partnership, which is a 4-year, $12.7 million investment. But what does that mean for you? Well, what we want to do is encourage collaboration on understanding the ethical frameworks in cyberspace, developing related technical standards so that we can promote and preserve an open, free, safe and secure internet. And we want research on trends which are shaping the global technology partnership marketplace. We'll be providing multi-year grants of up to $500,000 per year to organisations who can do that. The first round of applications closed in February, and we look forward to announcing the successful participants. I also wanted to talk about the multi-million-dollar Australia-India Strategic Research Fund. This supports scientists in India and Australia to collaborate on leading-edge research. It has already funded over 350 projects between Australia and India since its inception in 2006. Projects have ranged across a very wide area, but have included renewable battery storage technology, quantum computing, and agri-tech. Beyond these two flagship programs, there are a wide range of incubators, accelerators, favourable tax treatments, which are available to SMEs and startups looking to enter the technology marketplace. I really encourage you to engage closely with the IACC, with the Australia-India Business Council in Australia, with your state governments, with your federal government, and with us here at the consulate and my colleagues in Delhi to understand how we can best support your business. reach out to us, explain what you're looking for, and we'll do what we can to help. Because I said at the beginning, while businesses can look to government to foster green shoots, in the end it's over to you to develop from that the really strong collaborations we're looking for. And so I particularly at this point like to acknowledge the Australian and Indian firms working closely together. I was last in India 10 years ago for a posting in New Delhi, and it struck me in that intervening decade how deep the technology partnership in the private sector has become between our countries. Australian firms are investing a lot in knowledge centres in India, and Indian firms in Australia have almost unparalleled access to the important decisions that our businesses make. That goes to the trust and strategic connection between our countries. So I want to hear from you and my fellow experts on the panel. I'll stop now, but thanks again to the IACC for providing this opportunity.
Thank you, Consul General, for those remarks. And it's, we've always had such a great partnership with the Consul General in South India, in Chennai, and we thank you for being there for us. Also, I loved your remarks, the huge amount of support that policy gives to businesses and academic institutions to foster trade. So thank you again for those remarks. I'm going to move on now to our next speaker, Dr. Ajay Garg, who's a Director, SPD and Innovation and Startups for the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology at the Government of India. Dr. Garg is, I think, by choice, a champion of information technology and is deeply involved with a lot of the startup movement in India around technology. In his role, he is also responsible for strategic collaboration with international institutions and governments. And it's going to be a real pleasure to hear from him. Dr. Garg, over to you for your remarks.
Thank you, Deepak. Let me first thank the Australia-India Chamber of Commerce for giving me this opportunity to speak. This is a very, very challenging time that the world is actually going through, both with respect to a pandemic that has hit the world and hit the economy at large. And at the same time, the concept of trade is moving beyond WPA to a concept of a trusted value partners. And that is a key in which the Indian-Australia partnership becomes important. And I'll actually echo what Sarah has talked about, that India-Australia, because of they being one of the two strongest democracies, having high value systems around privacy, freedom for citizens, and all this, the partnership becomes very important to take it further, both on strategic level as well as economic levels. India and Australia also happen to be very traditional economies, whereas both have very rich natural resources, as well as a very strong background on traditional industry sector. Both have a very strong services sector economy. Indian IT systems, Infosys to be one of them, have played a key stellar role in the Australian economy and have been very valued partner. And we thank Australia for giving us all support for our industry to be there. But what needs to be done in future, where innovation plays a very important role, is to first understand the challenges that the two economies are facing. The two economies not only are facing challenge because of a dominant manufacturing economy, where there has to be a greater diversification of portfolios, but also on the front that the privacy and the freedom of citizens, as well as sovereignty around the digital space, is being challenged by the few proprietary platforms. There needs to be innovation, there needs to be more level playing field and issues of greater choices that the citizens can have in the digital space, which is very important to understand. And here comes an important partnership with respect to India. What India has done differently is that India has taken a route of innovation through public digital platforms. Whether we talk about unique digital identity through the Aadhaar system, or the unified payment interface that we created to actually provide level playing field and access to all banking systems to all large and small players is a unique example and the only example that I know in the world which can be a role model for future innovation where open innovation is a driver to innovation and privacy becomes uh, inbuilt in the system by design, not by legal systems. And that is one where we can collaborate. This also provides an access to low cost, frugal solutions solving problems on ground and at affordable prices and providing market access to the rest 5.5 billion population of the globe, which has been untouched by the digital revolution for the last 50 years. This is an opportunity which we do should actually encash and which I am a strong advocate of, and where there comes an important partnership on innovation and technology. The cyber partnership that Sarah and my earlier speakers have talked about is one such example where what we have, that the cyber partnership can never happen without a trust factor built into the trade. Now what we need to do is to use the technology linkages through the various platforms that are available, whether there is a strong startup ecosystem and the support that the government is providing, or a number of initiatives taken by the government of India for ease of doing business, for creating a very strong, robust private sector economy in this country, which can move the economy forward. These are some of the few examples we think we have created a for both Indian and innovators to collaborate and create a difference. And I think we have got a very strong journey forward. And I can assure you from the Ministry of Electronics and IT that our ecosystem of more than 100 incubators, our endeavor to create more public digital platforms, whether in health, agriculture, education, logistics, all this, we invite the best knowledge and the best skill set available, and we are also ready to share our journey across, because in India, what you understand, what if you do something, you have to do it for 1.3 billion people, and that gives you a very strong example for implementing technology at a scale which is unprecedented globally. So we provide an opportunity, and if Deepak will agree with me that we have in the last few years have moved from services to a strong software product ecosystem. The national policy on software product, talking about a 10x growth in 4 years, is an example of the confidence that we have on our product ecosystem to grow at an exponential rate. I think it's a very important forum. We are here for a very strong deliberations throughout the day, and we have opportunities that we need to encash. We need to encash it not only for the good of the two economies, but for the good of the world as such, looking at the very strong value systems that we both bring in. Thank you for giving me, and look forward to the Q&A session.
Thank you, Dr. Garg. Very exciting, I think, the whole India stack on technology that has enabled so much of businesses to flourish and come up in India. And also, I think a large part of the tech startups in India are really leveraging that to deliver increased amount of solutions and services to the country. I had one quick question for you, Dr. Garg, if I may. While cybersecurity and startups are great, is there discussion and opportunity for India to actually export its stack, its technology stack, to other countries like Australia? Because what that can open up then is, both the technology infrastructure of Australia, for instance, but also opportunities for players in India who have built stuff on the India stack to also participate in that business opportunity. So any thoughts on that in terms of how we can do that?
Absolutely, Deep. Well, what you understand is the technology stack in India is not a government per se initiative. It is a good collaborative example in which the private and the government sector have come together to build this stack, and where the participation is both from them. The unified payment interface, which we have actually partnered with few countries recently and ready to partner with many more, is one example where we can actually provide the methodology from which can actually provide the whole single unified platform for the whole fintech sector to grow. And it doesn't actually allow one player to monopolize, and it allows many players to flourish at the same time. In India, we do not have one payment wallet, but we have n number of wallets, and if you have a strong wallet system, you can actually plug into the whole banking system at a click of a mouse. And that's the strength of UPI. So we are ready to actually collaborate and look forward on the technology platform collaboration, and Australia happens to be one. The future in the 5G space, where sovereignty of the digital space becomes a key point, these public digital platforms will have a great role, and we are ready to discuss this forward with Australia, that how can we collaborate more for the betterment of economies and taking it jointly to other developing economies.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much for those remarks. I'm going more to the next segment now. We have our next panelists from both industry as well as universities. And I posed 3 questions to them, and would love to hear their very quick remarks on this. One was that given their own experience, and all of these companies have had great relationships with businesses both in India and Australia. So the first question was really, what are the opportunities for collaboration and what time frame that they are seeing based on their own experience? And second, what would accelerate this further? And third, where do they see requirement for help and assistance from the other stakeholders, for instance, on government policy or research institutions and so on? So I'm going to very quickly invite our next speakers. I'm going to start with Mr. Balaji Raghavan, who's the segment head for banking, financial services and insurance for TCS in Australia and New Zealand. Mr. Raghavan, in his current role, manages many customer relationships in the region. And of course, TCS has a great business in Australia, and it's a growing business. So it'll be wonderful to hear from Mr. Raghavan on his thoughts on these 3 questions. So, Balaji?
I'm sorry, sir. He has got disconnected. Probably will take some time for him to join.
Okay, we'll come back when Balaji joins us again. Let me move on then to Telstra and Mr. Gavin Standen, who's the executive for the partner ecosystem in India for Telstra. He's had a professional career of more than 26 years and running many large global operations. Today, he is managing the Telstra business partner ecosystem, and in that capacity, I'm sure has got a great insight about how Australian firms can work in India, but also what Indian firms bring to the table for Australian businesses. So, Mr. Standen, can I hand it to you for your quick remarks?
Thanks a lot, Deepak. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, loud and clear. Thanks.
Excellent, thanks. Yeah, so let me start off with where Telstra is concerned. It's a unique position where an Australian behemoth is actually coming into India for a particular reason. We have come to India with a significant investment on open innovation platforms and to accelerate our access to these platforms. The only reason we are in India, or one of the key reasons we are in India, is how do we get access to the next gen technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, 5G, and cloud computing, because this is going to define our future. And the 2 specific areas for tech-led collaboration, in my opinion, is on these 2 fronts. The first one is, how do we take advantage of the open innovation platform culture that has been built by the corporates and build an innovation ecosystem around it? Because at the end of it, what really matters is accelerating our commercialization of ideas. There are thousands of ideas out there. The question is, how do we commercialize those ideas really is key to a lot of our businesses. Because today, time to market is key. Case in point being, a COVID vaccine, if we had to follow the traditional ways of doing business, I think it would have taken us years to get a vaccine. And today, thanks to edge compute and high performance computing, we were able to generate something really, really quick. And I want to drive the same analogy back into our business. The second part about an opportunity is how can we move to talent as a service? I think so today, when you really look at the way we are setting up our offices, the way we're setting up our workforce, COVID has also been a great leveler. It has built operations from anywhere or remote working capability from anywhere, number one. But today it builds an opportunity where corporates and the academia can actually collaborate to define the supply chain for jobs of the future. And when I talk about jobs of the future, we're talking about digital inclusion, digital disruption, digital ways of working, and building a true digital operation for the industry. So these are the two key aspects I feel are huge opportunities, which will pretty much define what we need to do in the future, Deepak. Now to your second point, which is what are some of those accelerators and platforms we can look forward to really take advantage of? To be honest, I can run out of the number of opportunities we have in terms of platforms. But to Dr. Garg's point, a lot of these platforms are for us to go and leverage rather than being a sovereign property of a particular organization. Today, there are so many innovation platforms. For example, there are hackathons that are created or staged by companies like Microsoft, Telstra also included on an annual basis. And these hackathons are actually business problems that we throw open to the public, where startups, industry, our peer groups can actually come and help us solve problems. So gone are the days when we used to sit in our own research labs trying to figure out and solve problems for ourselves. Open innovation, open problem solving is the order of the day. That is the first one. Second one is, today there are a lot of incentives to really get into a lot of these tech startups and accelerators that are being created by industry bodies, NASSCOM 10K being one of them. I think so Accenture, KPMG and the likes have also got accelerators that we can take advantage of. So I think so the question is, if we have a vision and we have a capability that has been tested and we are confident about it, there are platforms where we can really go and leverage. And not to forget the government platforms that are there. There are umpteen number of platforms that are there from the grassroots level. And to your last question, where do you think the government could really help us in accelerating some of these opportunities or going after these opportunities? I think there are two parts. First one, how do we create a global talent platform? Break the walls between countries to make sure the exchange programs are much more targeted. The exchange programs are leverageable by corporates rather than just, landing between two academic institutions, and ensure that we build a workforce that is regional agnostic. I mean, if you can work from anywhere, anytime, I think that will be the new future, that's the way we want to really drive this. And last but not the least, how do we incentivize innovation at the grassroots level? And I'm talking about schools and colleges, where we can actually develop innovative capabilities, the innovative mindset as part of our DNA. So that is where I think so we should do it. Again, it's not a government only problem. It's a government, public and corporate partnership problem. We should develop this together. And this would be my take, Deepak.
Thanks so much, Gavin. Very interesting points and very actionable points. So thank you for that. We'll come back with some questions if we have time at the end. I'm going to move on now to Mr. T.R. Kesavan, who's the Group President for Corporate Relations and Alliances at the Tractor and Farm Equipment Limited, or TAF. I think, Mr. Kesavan, you're in a unique place because you're dealing with agricultural productivity, and today agri-tech is one of the most prominent and growing fields, and something that's so relevant for both Australia and India, both having a huge part of so much to share, I would say, in terms of agricultural technology and productivity. So over to you, Mr. Kesavan, for your thoughts, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Mr. Deepak. The first question of yours is, what are the opportunities and some of the opportunities? Actually, I wanted to tell you that both as the TAFE person and also the president of Tractor Manufacturers Association, and also in my capacity as the national chair for the Federation of Commerce and Industries in India, especially I'm a national agri chair. I've been working closely with the Australian agricultural side to see what are the collaborative possibilities as far as the India and Australia is concerned. And in fact, we were to take a full-fledged delegation to Australia, basically on the farm to farm head areas last year, but unfortunately everything got dropped because of the pandemic. I genuinely believe that one of the areas where we can really work very closely with Australia will be up to the farm head, which is all areas related to precision agriculture. And typically, what we logged on at that time was what are the things India can do so that we can cut down the cost of the inputs that goes into agricultural production. It can be anything. It can be seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, power, water, and actually maintaining the soil quality. Because today, what we do is we spoil the soil and then try to put money back to restore it. So these are the areas we actually were planning and chalking out to working with the Australia, especially during our so-called trip, which was supposed to have happened, but that has not happened. But still, I am closely in touch with the representative Australian agriculture in Delhi to see how we can take this forward. So I think this is one very, very important area. The other thing which I have been talking, and I think we're looking successful. See, as TAFE, we also export our own tractors to Australia as a massive focus in tractors, and been doing well. But something I've been talking to, and I think I've been reasonably successful, at least with one of my friend, Adam Frendick, is I actually persuaded him to come to India and put up a small industry which can actually start supplying components to Australia and also actually supply components for India. One of the advantages he had, disadvantage he had sitting in Australia was the volume. And I said, look, India agricultural industry needs the technology, whatever we can bring in. And the interesting thing is we can give you the volume. This is something I genuinely want Australian companies to relook at it, see whether we can also help them. If they want to partner with Indian companies so that we get a larger area to play, they have volumes, we can get some technology advantages, and we can also play both the Australia and India. I think I'm sure a lot of companies will be willing to work with them. One more area we have been working closely is also with some of the universities, because on the startup ecosystem, there is a strong agricultural startup ecosystem in India, which many people probably are not aware. We talk about startup on the other areas, but agriculture also has got extremely strong startup ecosystem. And this is one area I think we can work with the Australian universities. And this is one more area I think we can look forward to the support from the governments to ensure that this happens. Because I've been talking to some of the universities. I think we had visited many of the universities, both in Victoria as well as New South Wales and also in Queensland. That need to be accelerated, typically with respect to agricultural area. I think that can be one more area. And the second is, and probably the last point I really need to make here is, we as staff are also getting into a lot of CSR activities, and we have a large extent of money being invested in creating an agricultural space so that technologies can be showcased so that people can actually start picking it up. This is one area I'm happy to offer to the universities, and I'm sure that many of my colleagues in other companies who are in the agricultural field will also be opening it out so that we can really create hubs of knowledge which people can really enjoy utilizing it. I think this much I can talk for Australia. I also have extremely strong connection with Australia because my children are all settled in Australia. So that's also a little bit soft corner I can say I have for Australia. Thank you, Deepak. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Kesavan. Indeed, yeah, I think that goes on to having family relationships, business relationships, and then government relationships. So that's the right combination. I'll come back to you. I've noted a few questions, but I'll come back to you. But I want to move to our next speaker, who is Madhurima Agarwal. And Madhurima, you've been an entrepreneur, and we've heard so much about startups in the session so far. Madhurima is director for the engineering programs at NetApp, which of course is a global software provider. And I would ask her to talk a little bit about what she's seeing as opportunity for software development. We've seen a lot of the services side, but what about on the software side? So Madhurima, over to you for those questions.
Thanks, Deepak. Let me thank ISEC for bringing together this set of speakers and audience to allow us to share our views. So I think given the fact that I also head the corporate startup program for NetApp globally, it gives me a unique perspective into how corporates are thinking about startups and innovation. And Deepak, you talked about software development, and earlier Mr. Ajay had also alluded to the fact that today we are moving towards a product economy, right? More products are coming out of India, and startups are playing a big role in that. We've seen names like Postman emerge. During the pandemic, they became a unicorn. We are seeing Zoho, Freshworks, a lot of other names that are coming out of India in the product space. NetApp being a product company, and we see ourselves as a 28-year-old startup really. And the reason that's we see ourselves like that is innovation is core to our DNA. And that's something that I think today, across businesses that are present on this forum, innovation is something we all acknowledge is important. You cannot do away without innovation. You have to do it, whether it's incremental or whether it's disruptive. That differs across stages. And I think, in terms of the areas where we are seeing a lot of focus coming in is data-related areas. Data is the rocket fuel of digital transformation, right? As we all know, and the pandemic has shown us the power of data across domains, whether it's healthcare, where we've been able to come up with vaccines faster because of our ability to churn the data leveraging the AI models, the ML models that's there, or building a database. And earlier we talked about the platforms like the digital identity and stuff, which will help us in the vaccine dissemination, right? So I think all this is being done due to the power of data that is being harnessed by developing these products that are leveraging that, making sense out of that data. And I think that is where the future is. I did note down 3 areas, Deepak, based on your earlier questions about where we see this collaboration can help between the industry, the academia, and the government. And if I may just share those. So I think the first is early stage support. Startups that have already grown are seeing a lot of funding coming in, but the early stage startups are struggling because discovery is a challenge. And secondly, even making the decision on where to invest, given that early stage requires a longer runway, longer vision, we do want some support that can come in from long-term investors, which allows the early stage startups to focus on longer-term issues which can have a broader societal impact. The second is on the policy making side. Now, it's no secret that today, policy making is faced with a lot of difficult questions around the role of tech in everyday lives and the way tech companies operate. So if it is made easier, if there's more clarity, and I'll extend it to cross-border. A lot of we have staggering number of startups coming up in India, and they are really producing for the global stage. Not if you can solve for India, you can solve for the world, right? As you get unprecedented scale here. So how do we make it easier for that cross-border collaboration to happen? And specifically in terms of go-to-market, because all startups need customers to thrive and grow. So how we can do that? And the lastly is the R&D expenditure. In some ways, it ties into early stage. So if we can earmark a certain amount of expenditure for startups, give them that opportunity, make it easier, I think that can go a long way in creating stronger ecosystems across the globe, and especially Australia and India. And later, I would like to quote one example very close to us, where one of our startups went to Australia, and they are solving problems, in the data space for some of the leading companies there. With that, I'll hand it over back to you, Deepak. Thanks.
Thank you, Madhurima. Very interesting points, and indeed, I think there's a great opportunity for startups. If there's one takeaway, I'd like to give both the Australian and Indian government officials here, that we need to do probably a little bit more around exposing startups on both sides, both for investments from Australia to India, as well as what we can do in giving go-to-market opportunities for both sides. I'm going to move to Dr. Wilson before Balaji. Thanks. I see you joined in now, but I'm going to move to Dr. Wilson, who brings in a slightly different aspect. Dr. Wilson, you're at the Associate Dean at Monash University, but I know your passion is around the ethics of AI and community safety and how to use that. I can't think of a better time when this kind of technology and research is required for the globe, I would say. So can I ask for your comments on how you see that expanding the role of AI and also what we can do in terms of academia, government, and business collaboration?
Absolutely, Deepak, and thank you for asking me to participate. This has been a fascinating conversation. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's very interesting that universities have been mentioned. I think they're a key part of the ecosystem. You know, the days of universities as ivory tower institutions are long gone. Universities are really key parts of communities, heavily embedded in communities, and very tightly coupled with industry. And I guess the work that I'm involved in at Monash is an interesting example of that. And as you said, it's around AI and community safety. It's actually a partnership with the Australian Federal Police that we've had for a little over a year now. And what we do is we look at how AI and machine learning can advance problems of significance to law enforcement and therefore have a positive impact on community safety. And a lot of that work is inherently transnational. It's not particularly easy work to do for a number of reasons, and a lot of that is around data and ethics and access to data that's quite sensitive in a controlled manner. And I know that that's been actually mentioned a few times today in the context of data privacy and platforms. So it is absolutely, as you said, an area of passion of mine, and I'm very interested to talk with any collaborators as to how we scale that up. And I think just picking up on some of the discussions today, starting perhaps with the Consul General's remarks on what governments can do and their role, and I appreciate the fact that ultimately it's up to everybody to make a difference. And governments, though, do provide an environment, and I think, to me, the long game is about facilitating connection, and I think that people-to-people links are of prime importance in those connections, because I think with all of the things we're talking about, cultural understanding, knowledge sharing, knowledge transfer, and building understanding really takes place with that people-to-people linkage facilitation. So things like the new Colombo plan, for instance, from the Australian government, which I think is an amazing example. The universities are heavily engaged in this, but it provides some amazing opportunities for student mobility and building that longer-term connection between countries. I think that's of prime importance. I think, of course, industry, key drivers of economic growth and prosperity and scale, and we've talked about scale in India. It's amazing. The platforms that have been talked about today have really been quite eye-opening to me, the ID card platform, etc. I think in that context also, universities provide an R&D platform that is something that is incumbent upon all of us to, I think, explore further as to how those R&D platforms of universities and industries can be better meshed. But I might just leave it at that for now, and I'll look forward to the Q&A, Deepak.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Indeed, I think it's the same resounding messages about how we can establish further connects between research, startups on one side and business on the other side, and the role that government has to play to make that connection happen. I'm going to move on to our final speaker, Balaji, you've joined us again. I already introduced you as the segment head for BFSI for TCS in Australia and New Zealand. So over to you for your remarks.
Thanks, Deepak. Apologize for the technology challenges that I've had in connecting to the platform. But very happy to be here as part of the panel discussion and the support that I can clearly see from all the stakeholders and the governments and so on. So from my perspective, I think the potential that the Australia and India partnership brings to the table is enormous. And as we look ahead in terms of the new digital age and Industry 4.0 principles, we can clearly see that enterprises are moving towards a purpose-driven model. And purpose-driven model requires more organizations to collaborate in a very different way than what has happened historically. I feel that there's a fundamental shift in understanding of supply chains versus ecosystems. And when I say ecosystems, specifically referring to examples like a health and well-being ecosystem where you have insurers, you have healthcare professionals, you have life sciences enterprises, fitness and well-being enterprises, all coming together to fulfill a common purpose and needs of the community. So in this context, I believe that if we look at a trans-Indo-Pacific partnership in the context of ecosystems, I can clearly see 2-3 areas where this could play out. In the immediate term, health and well-being could be an opportunity for organizations of various sizes, right from startups through to large corporations, to reimagine the health and well-being as one as a business opportunity, and second also as a community-led initiative to bring the populations of both these countries together and create innovative products and services across the ecosystem. And I believe that Australia has unique advantages, be it technology, be it the standards, the health and wellness research that has happened in the country for a long time. And India provides, India is the pharmacy of the world. There's several leading drug discovery and drug manufacturers who operate out of India. And the scale at which the opportunity presents back in India is enormous. So I believe the technology backbone for creating a health and well-being ecosystem where different organizations across industries could participate is the opportunity is enormous. The second, I believe that given the amount of interest that cybersecurity has generated, especially in the last 12 months across Australia and also across India, I believe that that's another opportunity, because any technology advancement has to be underpinned by safe, sound, and secure principles. And at TCS, we've been participating actively with both Australian academia as well as the government-led initiatives on cybersecurity research. We would like to see an enhanced collaboration and encouragement in that space, especially in the context of government-to-government collaboration, as well as the participation in policy making and in a way designing the future cybersecurity framework across this part of the world. The third area I would like to point out is, I think there is an opportunity for us to reimagine talent on the cloud as well. And in that sense, how do we continue to scale the access to global best practices for Australian enterprises and also access to talent? And in a post-COVID world, I think there is an opportunity for the governments to reimagine what access means in the context of travel, safe travel, and also in terms of how remote working would be made possible. And in that context, again, technology would play a very crucial role, and many of the Indian organizations have come up with very unique solutions over the last 12 months that can enable both. So I would like to present these three opportunities which could have a long-term effect on the economies and enterprises of both countries.
Thank you, Balaji. You know, I always knew it's going to be a challenge to get this done on time with so many interesting speakers on my panel. And unfortunately, we are running out of time for the next session. So what I'm going to do is just quickly sum up some of the things that I heard and maybe just give a couple of minutes for the Consul General Sarah Kirlo and Mr. Dr. Garg to just make a few comments on what they heard. But broadly, the things that I heard, one, of course, thank you. There seems to be a lot of openness on both sides from a government perspective to look at ideas and encourage them. And some of the themes that came out here, one is there's a great opportunity for the tech stack that we've built in India that can, now collaborate with Australia. Second, an increased focus on startups and the need to actually have a more forum where we can identify and discover these startups on the first side and then present them with go-to-market on the other side. The combination of innovation coming out of Australia with the scale and volume that India can provide, I think, is one other theme that came out today. And then it was very interesting. A couple of speakers brought out, how we can create this DNA at the school and college level and university level. I think that's a great area to explore further on whether the edtech side or actually university partnerships. And leading from that, I think, Gavin, you mentioned about talent as a service, and Balaji came back again with talent of the cloud. How can we create a platform and an ecosystem where talent is more easily available through exchange programs and so on? And then, of course, Madhurima, you came with the need for looking at data, and I think that kind of also, is associated with what the Consul General said about cyber security focus, and I think, Balaji, you mentioned that as well. So these were some of the themes that came out, and Dr. Garg, if I might ask you to quickly, give us some remarks in closing, and then I'll ask Ms. Kirlau to do the same.
Thank you, Deepak. It has been a very interesting hearing from all the speakers and understanding and heartening to know that the India-Australia, people are looking forward to a more robust India-Australia partnership. So two things which have come out of it is the partnerships on startups. So I would like to apprise the audience that what Mighty has created is a single platform where we interconnect the deep tech startup ecosystem to the Mighty Startup Hub, where we actually look at partnerships from large industries, small industries, startups, incubators, accelerators around India and in other parts of the world. So we have partnerships in many of the important countries which are there in the startup ecosystem, and we look forward to a similar partnership with a parallel organization from Australia, and we can have much more deeper discussion on this. The second aspect was around partnerships around the public digital platforms, partnerships around the India Stack, and partnership around the digital trade per se. So what I would like to talk to my to Sara and my consulate friends is that we used to have a very yearly joint working group between India and Australia on the digital space. That unfortunately is not taking regularly for the last many years. Now, looking at the opportunity and the challenges the digital space has, and looking at the similar perspective on digital space that countries have, it's very important that we reignite the same frequency of these joint working groups or a digital dialogue between government and businesses participating also on an annual basis. Now with the virtual platforms creating such opportunities where the travels and the logistics no longer have to be, and the approvals also become much more easier. So this joint working group can be rethought of and recreated. We are ready to have discussions with the embassy, Australian embassy in India, to have it early as soon as possible to see at that what are the opportunities that are there, whether it's in the digital space or in the area of electronic manufacturing. These are the two important areas that joint working group. So these are some of my key points, that it can be an important forum where we interconnect and facilitate the businesses to work more, are better engaged in the trade partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garg. Thank you very much. We've made a note of those as well. So, Sarak, may I request you for a minute or two for your last comments?
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the session and found the discussion so rich and informative. And there's a lot there, as you summed up. We covered a lot of ground. So just a few points to draw out of it. Thank you, Dr. Garg, for the suggestion of the joint working group restarting. I'll certainly take that up with my colleagues in Delhi as well, and we'll be in touch on that. On the sort of startup ecosystem and the support for emerging ideas to get their foot in the ground, I'd also like to give a shout out to the Australian Alumni Grant Scheme, which is open at present and can help anyone who studied in Australia and has an idea to connect, and we give a little bit of seed funding to help you get started. The money's one thing, but I also think that the sort of imprimatur of having a government backer can also be helpful. So take a look at that. You can have a look at our Twitter, all the details are there. And then I think, I wanted to pick up on Dr. Wilson's point about people-to-people links and the importance of those. And I think that's a really important part of it, the business literacy for our companies to work one place to the other. So I just really recognise that point and say we do think that also is really important. And we very much look forward to the stage of the pandemic when we're able to kind of facilitate more travel again. These virtual platforms are great and so good at keeping the connections and helping people, but there's also nothing quite like getting there in person. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Consul General. Thanks so much for those remarks. And what I'm going to do is there's a bunch of things here, and probably in the follow-up to this session, we'll reach out to some of the speakers to see if they can anchor some of these initiatives going forward, so that we can bring more meat into it and get into the details. So once again, with that, thanks everyone for participating here, and I hope you have some time to join some of the detailed breakouts that are to follow. But for now, thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye.
This virtual platform. It's a great initiative, and today we're through the previous sessions. We've already started to find new ways to work together across our respective innovation and technology ecosystems. In this session, we'll take a deep dive into the utility industry, especially electricity and natural gas, with two leaders in energy services and technology. We're joined by Mr. Vikram Singh, Managing Director of Australia New Zealand at Tata Consultancy Services, and Mr. Jim Giannopoulos, Head of Technology Channels, Operations and Marketing at AGL Energy. Both of them have extensive experience in the sector and are keen to share their insights on how COVID-19 has impacted the industry, the trends we expect in 2021, how Australia and India are already working together, and what more we can do together. So let's get started. I'd just like to let everyone know that there is a chat function available in this session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in, and if there's time, we'll get to them. And also, this session is live and is being recorded. So we look forward to hearing from you. So perhaps if we can just start with AGL Energy. Now, I understand that AGL is committed to developing innovative and personalised and more sustainable solutions for their customers. Jim, how have your operations been affected by COVID-19? Have you accelerated your own digitalisation or adoption of technology? And perhaps some comments on the industry more broadly. Have you seen the same thing there?
Good question, and thank you and welcome to everyone. Thank you for having me on board for this fireside chat. It's a good question, Michael. Thank you for that lead in. I think COVID-19 has introduced quite a number of challenges for all of us. I mean, we're all operating right now remotely, the majority of us, so that tells you a lot of, what it's done from a day-to-day perspective. If anything, COVID has really accelerated digitization even more. It's it's really forced companies, not only the utility sector, but companies in general, to be thinking, well, technology has to be my driver to connect me with my customer, but then also to enable the organisation to operate in a far more effective manner. And I'll talk about that in a second. From our perspective at AGL, we look at ourselves, yes, we are a utilities company, but we're foremost thinking it started off probably, if I go back, when I first started at AGL 4 to 5 years ago, one of the reasons I did join the organisation was the vision of our then CIO and CEO, Andy Vesey at that time, and Simon Moorfield, to transform into a technology company. What does that mean? It means that yes, we are utilities, yes, we are gas and electricity and renewables, but the core thing is about us connecting with our customers. And the use of technology to be able to connect the customer was, a primary vision and driver that we've been looking at AGL. And then we ventured into a digital transformation program over the previous, 2 to 3 years, which has reaped benefits during COVID-19, I meant to say. What it means is we uplifted, with the enormous help of our partners such as TCS, our key systems, our front ends, the ability for our customers to do more online, but then also it gave us a huge leverage when we went into the lockdowns that we've all experienced to be able to operate the organisation quite effectively from home. It was actually a good test of the investment that we had been putting over the last few years, that we were able to convert from almost 3,500 people working within offices outside of the main power plants, because you do need people operating power plants, to having everyone else really operating from home, including our overseas call centres in Manila and in Kolkata as well too. So I think that was the unique thing that I think COVID-19 accelerated. I think the whole process around the customer is quite important for us as well too, where we want to be able to give a customer the whole connected experience. So the more the customer can do online for us is quite important. The ability for them to be able to do what they need with their gas and electricity, but then also to be able to provide them new offerings, whether it is anything from our multi-product strategy that we've been enacting on over the last couple of years, from mobile to broadband, we're into the telco telephonies, potentially to other type of products in the future, and as well as even being able to still look at opportunities for new technologies in the utility sector, such as batteries, the power plant, virtual power plants where people can generate their own power and feed it into the generation system, and including electric vehicles. So it has probably accelerated the digitization in a number of aspects that I can see. The offshoot as well from running a company as well too, it actually produces the challenges as well, where your revenues will be impacted, because obviously with our large customer base, there are a number of people who are impacted whether they can work or not, and we've seen that with the pandemic we've gone through. So the continual thinking around cost to grow and cost to serve is paramount with what we do day to day. So you continually need to be looking at your systems, whether they're operating efficiently, or do we need to think radically to take us to the next step where you can further connect the customer in a future state, but then also drive down your operating costs as well too. It is a key focus of ours.
How are you finding the customers actually responding to this situation, COVID-19? Are they able to adapt to your systems and processes, or have you had a bit of resistance?
You will always have some customers who are still used to the very old way. They'd like to have their bill in their hand. They don't have internet at home. So there will always be a subset of the population that we will have to deal with that. But in general, quite the majority of our customer base, which we have got a growth strategy for that anyway, is really online. People like to have at their fingertips the ability to understand their energy usage, And also being able to be offered, have they got the most attractive offering from a plan perspective? Are there any other opportunities around multi-products that can give them an end-to-end connected customer view? So one of the things we're seeing now that we've ventured into the broadband and mobile market is the ability now to think about your essential services are no longer gas and electricity. It is also now starting to be utility industries such as telephony. It's just as important as having your gas and electricity these days. So we are seeing a more increase of our digital adoption over the last year than what we'd seen previously. And that's also reflected with what we're seeing with the type of calls we're getting even in our call centre staff. So we're seeing less of that, which is a good driver for us. But also some of the calls that we're getting now is more queries of how they can do things better and faster even online, which for us is a great opportunity to look and innovate on our products that we're offering our customers.
Oh, it's fantastic to hear. So I'd like to bring in TCS now. So Vikram, TCS's work is focused in the service industry and providing an enabling environment across a range of sectors. How has the service industry been keeping the lights on, so to speak, for the electricity and energy providers? And what has TCS specifically done in partnership with AGL Energy?
Sure. First of all, good afternoon to all of you. And it's a privilege to be on this panel. And first of all, I also agree with most of the comments what Jim had made about how COVID has changed the whole business environment, both from a customer perspective and the market perspective. If you see, I still would say both Jim and me live in one of the most privileged part of the world where the COVID impact is the minimal compared to most of the country. However, having said so, a couple of industries are severely impacted. If you say the travel or a hotel industry is quite severely impacted, utilities have been better in that case. Being essential services or essential category of a line of business, they've been less impacted. Still, there is some impact. Having said so, TCS has managed this whole COVID transition very, very effectively and efficiently to help their customer to transform and transition from pre-pandemic days to post-pandemic days. And as all of you know that how the lockdowns happened globally, and particularly in case of India, it happened within 4 to 5 hours, Philippines together. So it was quite a sudden and a disruptive change. But as a company, we were, I would say, ahead of the curve of planning or putting a strong foundation of a digital backbone. And that was demonstrated in our ability to transition our 470,000 people workforce working remotely and virtually without any disruption to our customer. So that was a big change, I would say that, and that's why we are kind of happy to share that most of our customers transitioned from working from office to remotely without any change on their commitment to the customers and customers' customer. But more than that, it was safe, secure, without any disruption to our services. So that's the way we have managed, Michael, and Australia is no different what we have done globally.
Thank you. And well, it's great that you've been able to pivot so quickly because you've been investing in these sort of technologies and digitizations and servicing your customers. Is there a specific aspect of the partnership with AGL that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Sure. So AGL is a pretty, I would say, important and very strategic relationship where I can say we are the primary partner and a backbone of AGL ability to serve their customer. And the good part, we are not only a technology partner, we are their business partner in the form of all their business processes. Both their internal as well as externals are managed by TCS. We service AGL from Australia, Philippines, and India. But the way we have managed the seamless transition of AGL to ensure that there is no disruption to them as a customer, but beyond that, there was no major risk or challenge to their customers also while this pandemic and this whole disruption or this change was happening there. And that was primarily done on 2 or 3 principles. One, as a partnership, we have listened to each other, we have understood each other well, and we have invested together. with respect to knowing their processes, understanding their challenges, putting a risk mitigation plan, whatever happen. And I think that's why these DNAs of the two organizations have allowed to work us seamlessly and serve our customer seamlessly.
There's some great lessons there on how Australia and India can actually partner together to ensure good partnerships. Jim, did you want to add anything to the partnership that you have with TCS and how effective it's been during this period? I think you're on mute.
If there's one thing we learn with COVID-19 is the dreaded mute button in any conversation. So my apologies on that one. But what I was saying was I absolutely, concur with a number of the items that Vikram did call out, which I was alluding to with my talk as well too. For us, the success to move from a normal situation to the pandemic and get people to work from home. And Vikram also said very clearly that we were able to do it around the world as an organisation, whether it's in Australia, all around Australia, right through to our offices and partnership in the Philippines and India. And we're talking about people working from their home, wherever they are. Is a testament to the partnership of how well we worked over the last few years in developing the backbone. Because when we talk about digitisation, if we haven't developed that backbone, you're not going to get anywhere. And we saw a number of companies in Australia fall over due to that. But then also the other thing is it is a partnership, and the more that partners that we deal with, like TCS, understand us, then I call it a symbiotic relationship where continually we're talking and working out how do we improve and become more efficient, whether it's technology or whether it's business processes. So from that perspective, I think that has been one of the great successes we've had over the last few years as we've gone ahead into the pandemic.
It's great to hear. Now, Jim, also you spoke earlier about how obviously COVID-19 has moved you or accelerated your digitisation process across a range of industries as well. What about, are you seeing a changing pace in the adoption of new or renewable energy? Like, is that speeding up as well, or is that slowing down as people adjust to this period? What have you seen?
I think it's renewable energy is forefront in the Australian market. Let's be honest, it is front and centre in our communities. Yes, there's a fair bit of debate that goes on from a government level and industry where they're going to, but as an organisation we are looking at our social contract that we have with our communities, and we are thinking of what next from an investment perspective. I talked about a little bit earlier that, we brought out recently a couple of products. One is a carbon neutral product, which is a co-investment that with every plan that we've got with our customers, we can invest a little bit into opportunities to identify further renewable options that we have. Well, two things like batteries and electric vehicles are something very big and front and centre that we are offering our customers. But it doesn't stop there. We've actually got, an area in the organisation which continually talks about future business opportunities and renewal opportunities. It is something we're looking at continuously.
Thanks very much for that. And Vikram, have you seen a similar thing in India as well through your engagements with partners here?
Sure. So, Michael, if I see the few things which we are seeing as a big shift from pre-COVID and post-COVID, one, I think digital core is becoming the absolute must and a strategic imperative for the companies. And it is no longer agenda of a CIO or IT manager or a business leader. It is absolutely a clear-cut agenda of a CEO and a board and CFO. Because ultimately they are looking, how do I transform myself, which is adaptable and can really sustain any kind of uncertainties and unknown challenges in the future. And that's why they're putting the digital core as a backbone, and which is giving a couple of imperative or a differentiating value to them. One, they're able to manage any spikes, any changes and uncertainties better. Second, it is giving a better time to market. Third, a better predictability of the cost, because now no longer is a large, complex, unmanaged, unplanned kind of a capex programs are being only approved by the board. Now they are looking how clear cut and have a defined timeline, a clear cut my cost view, and the outcome which I can make my partners accountable. So that's a big change we are looking or we are seeing in the marketplace, Michael.
Thanks for that. And so does TCS have a roadmap or a plan for supporting the evolution of the utility sector as we start to see some of these changes play out? What does TCS intend to do?
See, again, to align and adapt to the market change, we are making a couple of, I would say, investment in the marketplace, both from our building a better and a higher competency on the digital skills, because that is the need of the industry or our customer. So we continue as a people's company or as a consulting company, we continue to invest in our people, either in the today's technologies or the technology which are going to be relevant for tomorrow. That's the first thing which we continue to invest. Second, we are adapting and making a change with respect to the commercial engagement model. Nowadays, customers are not looking at pure play or time and material, which is like a people-based kind of a costing structure or a commercial engagement. Now they are looking at what is outcome-driven commercial engagement with the partners, and which demonstrate our ability to understand our customers better, appreciate their risk, and help them to manage and realize the risk better. So that's a big shift we are seeing it out. And third, we are seeing a big change in the partner ecosystem. It is no longer a one provider or one company who is driving the overall shift in the marketplace, adoption, and the change in the capabilities. I think it is a partner ecosystem which collectively is helping companies to realize the benefit and outcome they're looking it out. Particularly coming to the utilities, Michael, I think there's a fourth dimension, which is a regulator. Whatever you do, ultimately there is somebody who is not pure play market driven or market kind of drive agenda. There is a regulator also plays a significant role. Whatever we do, ultimately we have to align, agree with our customer to fulfill the need of the communities, societies, which is governed by the regulators.
No, thank you for that, Vikram. I'm glad you spoke about the partner ecosystem, because it has certainly flourished in the last few years, especially as you start to see startups coming in as part of that. But more partnerships happening with academia, with industry, and across industry, knowing that you can't do this alone. You actually need this depth of partners to support you in your journey. So something we do keep hearing, which is really great. So, Jim, what do you see as the top 3 trends that will define 2021 and beyond within the utility industry? And do you think that this will hinder or enable collaboration between both our countries?
I think, if anything, collaboration will expand between the countries. I think Vikram summed that up really well about the partnership. And it's something that I've seen as well too. Over the last 2 years specifically has been more asking more of our partners to understand our business and share the risk, as what Vikram did call. And yes, there is a move away from classic time and materials, just go and select the menu, to invest in the organizations and share some of the risk and profit, as we call it as well too. There's more of that coming along. So some of the key things we do see is not only collaboration such as TCS around innovations and opportunity to partner, but also, you are right, there is no way we can just ourselves identify innovations internally, and therefore partnerships with other organisations are going to be just as important. Hence, AGL has invested in its future partnerships part of the business, or future business component, which is part of that, which is looking at other opportunities we can bring in and work within an organisation. Because, to be honest, some of these will be hits, some will be miss. And you've got to be able to be agile enough to try. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You move on and look at the next thing. But it needs that agility. But I think, one of the key drivers I do see coming up in the new year is still the expansion of digitisation. We see the ability for customers to do more online and do what they need is key. As part of that, I think it will be the drive of our operating costs, because at the end of it, it is about how we operate in a tougher market. Vikram did also call out the regulators. I love that word. They are there. We've got to think about government regulations, whether they're state or federal, or even things that come out of climate councils as well too. And then lastly as well too then is, are we differentiating ourselves enough to our customer base? So are we able to provide enough products, or what makes us different to our competitors to enable us to stand where we are in the market space?
Oh, that's great. And Vikram, do you agree with those trends? And do you see any other further opportunities for collaboration across the utility sector coming up in the next year and beyond?
Yeah, so I first of all, I really understand and appreciate what Jim said. Primarily, we are seeing a complete shift in all the parameters, either as a partners or regulators and customer. And in that journey, I think the companies who will do well and differentiate themselves will be the companies who have investment mindset. Because ultimately, a lot of things we don't know is we don't know it. But are we willing to invest? And investment can be in the form of our people, our platforms, our partners, our customers, our people. So that's the whole mindset we have to run with it, Michael. Coming to the way which, if I have to see tomorrow's organizations or enterprises which will be differentiating and leading the path, is there are 3 or 4 characteristics which are emerging very clearly. First, it's a mindset of the people have changed in the last 12 to 14 months when they are no longer thinking a traditional way. Everybody in the company is thinking or has to think at the digital way of working. It can be accepting a norm like, oh, it's okay to people working from home, but they're still productive, they're efficient, and they know what they're doing it out. Earlier, there used to be a lot of, I would say, questions, either ask or non-ask kind of a question, but the whole digital way of working is evolving. Now people accepting it, because that's a very new way of working. Similarly, if I see as an investment or focus from the companies, the collaboration platform will continue to evolve. There will be a more and more focused investment happening on the collaboration platform or the digital platform. Somebody can call it a cloud, somebody can call it putting absolutely in a hybrid model or private model, but ultimately putting an investment in the digital platforms. Third, seeing the clear-cut focus on building the capabilities of the people and the institutions. Whatever they are doing, they have to continue to invest building the capabilities. Another area which we are seeing, people are no longer looking a large transformation program. They're de-risking them by putting agile way of working, either as a program management or a project management, to ensuring that whatever the dollar they're putting, they're realizing and leveraging early. Is that the key for the large companies or every company to kind of be successful in that? Whatever we do in this process, the cyber security will be a key imperative for companies to still ensure that they are not getting off-guarded and the blindsided and suddenly get a big risk to all this thing. So according to me, whatever we do, cyber security will continue to be a primary focus and agenda for the companies to survive and lead the path tomorrow.
Yeah, some very useful insights there. And I just wanted to add, you mentioned regulators before. Government's role is also to provide an enabling environment for companies to be able to do more together. You would have all seen the great work done last year in elevating our partnership with India to a comprehensive strategic partnership, which has some tangible agreements and action plans for trying to do more together and create that environment, including providing funding, working together on the challenges you mentioned around cyber security, which will affect every industry. As we get better technology and it becomes more efficient, there is also the element of it being misused. And we have to protect against malicious attacks and also to ensure that we protect our businesses, our citizens, so that we can work together better. So is there anything more you think the government can do to support these partnerships going forward?
Jim, you want to take the lead?
I'll start with Vikram and then Jim to finish.
Okay, that's fine. So from my perspective, I think, Michael, yes, government has a major role to play. We have been engaging with a lot of ecosystem within the government, and I can give 2 or 3 dimensions to that. One, we are creating a greater awareness for the future workforce, which is either girls or the boys. The STEM program, how the STEM will be a most important program for kids to really understand, learn, and make them aware that there is a better, a brighter future and career for them. So we are making a lot of intervention around the STEM program. So education is the key for this whole I would say industry to grow and make the better and larger impact to the communities and to the government in that case. So we would continue to do that and seek help from the government, how better we can partner with the government to further expand, fast track the STEM adoption in the kids or the students communities. Second, I would say there's a lot of areas which we think are emerging. We being a global company, we have a lot of experiences, a lot of learnings. Can we bring that faster and a larger to the Australia as an industry? And we are quite keen to at least promote a couple of niche areas as a center of excellence, either with academics or with the industry or with the government. And I can give some examples, like we are talking about 5G area, we are talking about blockchain area, we are talking about sustainability. We have partnered with one of the New Zealand university where we are proactively putting our hand that we want to really start appreciating or recognizing the effort of the companies which are putting a direct focus on digital sustainability. How the whole digital assets will be sustainable and ensure that there is a minimum impact to the whole carbon footprint in the industry and communities in the countries. So we are looking such kind of initiatives, and we'll see if there's a bigger platform, both from recognition, awareness, and taking that forward will be a good collaboration across the government and industry perspective.
Well, we look forward to working with you on that as well. Jim, do you have any views on what more government could do to support industry in this sector?
I think, as Vikram called out, the ability to invest into your future leaders and future employees in organisations is quite paramount for us. That is quite key, that we want to be a place to attract talent. Talent brings in the opportunity for innovation and new thinking, so that is quite important. One of the biggest issues for us in Australia at the moment is that obviously we want the government to help us with the climate policies, that we need to give industries the surety and allow for further investment in renewables and the ability to take on risks. I think that is quite important. But again, the other thing as well for us is we are in a climate where the work from home is something that's going to be ongoing. Whether we have another pandemic or this pandemic does, hopefully, God willing, die down with vaccines, the opportunity for a different way of working, giving people flexibility from working at home and in the office and around the world is going to be quite paramount to keep the ability to have continuously new talent coming into the organisation.
No, look, thanks very much for that. So I think we're right on time now. So I'd just like to give a huge thank you to our panellists, Jim and Vikram, who have given their valuable time to help us better understand technology adoption in the utility sector, as well as opportunities and ways that we can support collaboration. There's clearly a plethora of ways that we can work together in this sector and beyond, and there's more that government, industry, academia, and the partner ecosystem, which is startups, entrepreneurs, and other social players, to do together to be able to collaborate in this sector. You've also reinforced our mutual commitment to working together to create jobs, to drive growth, and to accelerate our own economic recoveries over the next few years. So thank you very much to both speakers. I know it was short but sweet. I think there was a lot that you've packed in there that will be very useful to the participants on finding where they can do more. So I'd also like to thank the Indo-Australian Chamber of Commerce for developing this platform for engagement in tech and innovation. And I wish everyone the very best. Please stay safe and well, and take the opportunity to have B2B meetings on this platform with like-minded businesses over the next week. Because I think together we can ensure the Australia-India Innovation Partnership has a global impact. So thank you again to our speakers. Thank you for listening in, and all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jim.